世界から弾き出された途方もなく細い針の上にいた僕らにただ一つ与えられてた歪んだ羽
もうそんなんじゃほら心は進化するよもっともっと
Warning. This video contains major spoilers for the show Terran Resonance, all the way up until the end. You have been warned.
Zankyo no Teruru, otherwise known as the Terran Resonance, is a 2014 anime about two young boys in Tokyo who resort to terrorism. Everything about this was lined up to be the perfect anime. It is directed by Shinichiro Watanabe, otherwise known as the director of Cowboy Bebop. We also have another star-studded member of the crew, Yoko Kanno. She is highly regarded as the most talented artist in anime, and in this series you better know she delivers. In fact, everything about the directing and music in Terran Resonance is absolutely perfect. Sometimes we even glimpse into the most profoundly beautiful direction of all time.
Someone tell me how I got here. From the city to this frontier, all the noises joined to make spirits flying at the speed of light. Traveling like a dream one.
Even the writing for the first half is near perfect. Watching the cat and mouse game between the police and 9/12 is very entertaining. For being terrorists, our main characters are made to feel sympathetic and complex in ways that are completely believable. Lisa, our third lead, is also likable, having a grounded feeling to her character. And she also has the oh-so-relatable character trait for teens who just want to be set free. And really, for the first half, everything about this show really works. Before we learn the motivations of 9 and 12, we are led to believe that they exist within moral grayness. This grayness makes them understandable, yet mysterious enough not to be fully trusted. If they had stayed in this grayness, if their motivations aligned in a way they were introduced originally, Terran Resonance could have been the nearly perfect anime. Sadly, this is not the case. Now, this is not to say that Terran Resonance falls apart in all aspects. I still really like this show. Sometimes I even love it. I own it on Blu-ray, so obviously something's going for it. That being said, the first cracks start to be formed when 5 is introduced. Her entire character is an absolute mess in my opinion. She serves the role of an overwhelmingly evil antagonist. Constantly riling up and baiting our main character seems to be her only purpose. This alone utterly destroys the intrigue we gain regarding 9 and 12. The perfect mixture of moral grayness built up before, them fighting what we know are the good guys, is overshadowed by her presence. Her clearly displayed opposition puts the main characters into a position where they assume the hero role. Perhaps the writers assumed that making them the good guys would make them more sympathetic. Whatever their intention was though, it didn't work. A character does not need to be good to be sympathetic. If anything, I found them to be more sympathetic before the narrative shift. 9 and 12 are displayed as flawed people who are doing things that are objectively wrong. To me, not only did this deepen the mystery as to why they're doing these things, it connected me to the characters more personally than any protagonist ever could. Another issue 5 brings to the narrative is the messiness of her motivation. Does anyone actually know why she does anything? She actively works against our main characters despite being in love with 9, which in the first place is one of the most cliche motivations for a character to have, but it also brings up the question as to why she wouldn't try to get his attention in other ways. I can already see the argument being brought up that she thought this was the only way to get his attention, and that the orphanage they went to taught them to behave this way. This is a fair point, but it also ignores that the first time she shows up, she literally tries to blow him up inside of a train. Maybe the writers thought that we'd understand that making her a total is justifiable as long as she has one emotion at the end. This is not how it works, guys. None of my misgivings with 5 though compare to the misgivings I have with how 9 and 12's motivations and character conclusions were handled. First, we need to talk about their backstory. The Athena Plan was a project that was designed to gather gifted children for education. They gathered orphans to test a drug to increase their mental and physical capabilities. 5, 9, and 12 are the only 3 survivors of this experiment. The Japanese government was trying to use them as military weapons until the United States government intervened. The problem with this backstory is that it reeks of bog standard. For a show with an extremely original concept, rich characters, and a solid setting, nothing could have been more disappointing. Think about how many shows you've seen with the evil government being the true villain, not the villains we see in front of us. The decision for the major plot twists ends up feeling contrived and frustrating because of this. It also exacerbates my previous point that 9 and 12 have more of their moral grayness removed. If the government is truly evil, then what they're doing is to show defiance against them. From a narrative perspective, this becomes the objectively right thing to do. However, this is at serious juxtaposition with the fact that they are literally terrorists. Nothing about blowing up buildings and causing fear for the general public should be considered the right thing to do, but Terror in Resonance begins to present it as so by the end. With all of this in consideration, the worst sin the show commits is the deaths of 9 and 12. Nothing is wrong with killing them in the end. In fact, narratively, these characters needed to die. However, in the way which they do die leaves much to be desired. 12 is shot by a helicopter, and 9 dies from the after effects of the drugs they took as children. And with that, they're glorified as heroes. Even the detective, Shibazaki, believes that after their deaths, what they did was right. But was it? The ending seems to ignore a very major plot point. 9 detonated an atomic bomb over Tokyo. Now, you could make the counter argument that he made sure it was out of range of the city and therefore wouldn't kill anybody and just affect the electronics. But that ignores a major fact that this would still definitely kill people. Hospitals would completely shut down, the EMP would destroy engines and traffic lights, undoubtedly causing car crashes. The electricity would be out on a mass level, causing panic to the civilians. It is reasonable to assume that mass rioting and crimes in action would break out during this event, but the show just ignores this, like it would never happen. So 9 comes out of the situation like he is a messiah of the new world, he who has done no wrong. When it comes time for them to die now, we as the audience are expected to understand that they did not deserve this death, but rather the government has its interests in mind still. Therefore, even after the protagonist detonates an atomic bomb, the government is still in the wrong? All this circles back to how I think that the writers were afraid of having protagonists that were not in the right. However, many other shows have displayed that having morally gray protagonists is far more interesting than them just being good guys. Death Note's Light Yagami is an example of a detestable main character who works on almost every level. In my opinion, Lelouch from Code Geass displays the qualities of a complex character even better than Light. His moral code also aligns with what the writers should have done with 9 and 12. Lelouch has a goal in which many ways could be considered the right thing to do, but he has to do very bad things to achieve it. He accepts this consequence and continues down his path regardless. We are shown a character who feels conflicted about what he has to do, and does have to do things sometimes that are clearly wrong. Shying away from this element in the Terror in Resonance hurts the overall narrative strongly, especially because it deals with the very sensitive topic of terrorism. Because they do not kill anybody and refuse to do so, they're considered to have a moral code from the very beginning. That being said, destroying public property and putting people in potential danger is definitely wrong. The first half of the show, before we delve deeper into their motivations, achieves the feeling that their form of protest is not necessarily the right path. Even though we know they have a moral code, through implication alone we know that it's probably not the right thing to do. The revelation about the government's antics and the perspective we are shown the show from shifts the lens of the show to show what they're doing is completely right. This completely recontextualizes even the first half of the show, which overall is stronger than the second in my opinion, but because of this, it brings down the product as a whole. That being said, even if Terror in Resonance does fall apart, something about this show is so captivating. The talented team that worked on this made a truly fantastic show. Even though there are narrative issues, it manages to be a strong show and emotionally powerful throughout. It may appear that I'm trying to shit on this show in the video, but this is not the case. Rather, I'm speaking out as to why the show is merely a great show. Because in my opinion, if the narrative issues were fixed in the second half, and it was possibly given another episode or two, the overall package would have improved greatly. In fact, I believe that with these fixes, Terror in Resonance could have been the best anime of all time.